All right, so far so good. Still preparing. All right, looks like we are live. Hello, everybody. My name is Didier Jimenez. I am the leader for the All Revolution Hillsborough. We are a movement that we ask ourselves, are you willing to fight for somebody that you don't know as much as you fight for yourself? And the answer should always be yes. We are here to help community members and help improve our community through policy oriented and also just loving and respecting each other regardless of where you're from. Today we have a special guest, Samantha. She is one of the reps for the Sunrise Movement in New Jersey, and she's going to talk to us about global warming and what the Sunrise Movement stands for. We had this event planned at a restaurant in Hillsborough, but due to the coronavirus and all the precautions we have to take to stay safe, we are airing it live for everybody to enjoy at the comfort of their homes. So Samantha, carry it on. Thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you all about the Sunrise Movement, Green New Deal, and climate change, and how we can stop climate change. I have some slides, so I'm just gonna share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so at our core, the Sunrise Movement is a movement to stop climate change and create millions of good jobs across America in the process. We're working to build an army of young people and to work together to make climate change an urgent priority across America. We're fighting for an end to the corrupting influence of fossil fuel executives on our politics, and we're working to elect leaders who will stand up for and fight for our communities, our families, our health, and our lives. The Sunrise Movement is a decentralized movement with hubs, which is what we call our chapters, across America. We all follow the same organizing principles, and we're supported by each other and our national team, but our specific goals vary from place to place. And that's what's really powerful about the Sunrise Movement, because we're a united movement with a huge network that connects us across the country. And we're more impactful because we're working everywhere in our own political contexts. Most of us don't come to Sunrise as trained organizers or environmental experts. We're ordinary young people who are scared about what the climate crisis means for our futures and the people and places we love. And we're angry that the adults in charge have led us down this destructive path to the climate disaster we're now facing. But we know that if we unite by the millions, we can turn this into political power and reclaim our democracy and our futures. So the Sunrise Movement, just a little background, it started in 2017 by a group of about 12 young people who could no longer ignore the immediacy of the climate crisis and the inaction of our elected leaders. They understood that if we make the mass of the country feel this same urgency, our leaders will have no choice but to take action. The IPCC report that came out in 2018, written by the world's leading climate scientist, says that we have until 2030 to lower our emissions by 45% of 2010 levels and 100% by 2050 in order to avoid the most disastrous consequences of climate change. Since then, we're still polluting, we're still releasing greenhouse gases, and the majority of our leaders have done effectively nothing. Communities across America are already facing the severe impacts of climate change, and we know that frontline communities home to people of color, Indigenous and working class people will be hit first and hardest. And as of now, they have their least resources to combat these disasters. Right now, wind and solar energy are cheaper than the polluting oil, gas, and coal of yesterday, but nationally we continue to waste billions of dollars of taxpayer money giving handouts to oil and gas CEOs. And these fossil fuel executives are holding our future hostage. They've bought off politicians, both Republican and Democrat, to ensure their financial success, while the rest of us are left to suffer. In the past 3 years, the Sunrise Movement has exploded across the country. Every week, more and more hubs are forming. And I believe that one of the key reasons for our success is our strong theory of change and movement principles in the face of this crisis. So the main thing that we're fighting for now is a Green New Deal. In order to stop the climate crisis and transform our society, we need to change the systems that allowed climate change to happen in the first place. We need to frame climate change as the result of oppression, injustice, and exploitation, and understand that to stop it, we need to really comprehensively evaluate many of our Western values. We need to stop imperialism, and we need to reject capitalist greed. The clearest way, we believe, to mobilize our society to stop climate change and address this underlying crisis of oppression that caused it is by rallying behind a strong Green New Deal. So right now, we're definitely at an unprecedented moment in history. You could probably also say that a few weeks ago, before any of us in the US truly understood how dire the COVID pandemic had become. And now that the whole world is on lockdown, as hundreds of thousands are infected, and we're headed for a sure recession, things feel very dark and our future feels really uncertain. Many of our leaders in Washington are trying to use this crisis to pit us against one another and make a fortune while the whole country suffers without access to medical treatment. Bankers, oil executives, and drug companies have been meeting secretly with Trump, while healthcare workers have been forced to do their work without minimal protective equipment, and others have to choose between working while sick or not paying their bills. And we need to ensure that the fight against this disease will not become yet another way for the rich to steal from the poor. We need to prevent any bailouts of these major industries and fight for the leaders across America who are helping us in this crisis. But a real way that we can push our but now more than ever, we need a strong Green New Deal, because this is the only economic stimulus package that meets the urgency of this moment. Instead of responding the same way that we did in 2018 with corporate bailouts that left millions unemployed and homeless, the government needs to be investing massively in public health infrastructure, guaranteeing federal jobs to all workers displaced, and employing millions to transform our energy, transportation, and food systems towards renewable energies that stabilize both our economy and our climate. So I want to talk briefly about what the Green New Deal actually is. So this is a resolution that was introduced to Congress last year as a 10-year plan to mobilize every aspect of American society towards 100% clean energy, guarantee jobs for all members of society, and create economic prosperity for all. So it includes things like a jobs guarantee with family-sustaining wages, family and medical leave, paid vacations, and retirement security, access to high-quality healthcare, affordable, safe, and adequate housing, economic security, access to clean water, clean air, healthy and affordable food, and access to green spaces for everyone. High-quality education, including higher education for everyone. Meeting 100% of the power demand in the United States through clean, renewable, and zero-emission energy sources. Repairing and upgrading the infrastructure in the United States by eliminating pollution and greenhouse gas emissions as much as technologically feasible, overhauling the transportation in the United States to eliminate pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from that sector, and expanding public transportation and high-speed rail. We need to be working collaboratively with farmers and ranchers to eliminate pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from the agricultural sector. We need to champion small farms and reject big factory farms. And as great as the Green New Deal is, many of us still don't think it goes far enough. So many of us in the climate movement are pushing for what we call a strong Green New Deal, and that has a greater emphasis on environmental justice to ensure that we provide a just transition for all communities and workers engaged in the fossil fuel industry, to stop and repair historical oppression and prevent future oppression by centering Indigenous, Black, and other people of color, migrant communities, and other historically oppressed peoples as leaders of the Green New Deal. So we are at the point now, unfortunately, where even if we stop emitting greenhouse gases today, we're still going to be facing sea level rise, mass flooding, more frequent and intense hurricanes, drought and famine, which will lead to things like mass human migration and the spread of infectious disease like we're seeing. Unfortunately, as we're now living, changes in infectious disease transmission patterns are likely a major consequence of climate change due to rising temperatures that will change the habitats of disease carriers like mosquitoes. And if we allow it, it'll be easier for diseases to spread in flooded urban areas and in overcrowded refugee camps. There's also a ton of research that proves that people in areas with bad quality are more susceptible to illnesses, especially COVID-19. And in the US, if we don't change, we're going to see this along racial lines, as low-income communities of color have historically faced the pollution burdens of trash incinerators and power plants and other major polluters. And though it might be too late to prevent all the effects of climate change, we do get to decide where we go from here. If we want to embrace eco-fascism and leave the most vulnerable among us to suffer, while the rich continue to profit and ensure we have no future on this planet, or we can fight for a Green New Deal and build the America we were promised but has really yet to ever exist. So that's what we're fighting for here, is a Green New Deal. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about Sunrise's theory of change. So we need three things to win, we believe. So people power, political power, and a new political common sense based on the needs of everyday people and not profits for the wealthy few. So the first thing that we need here is people power. We need to build an active base of public support. So we're building this by talking to our communities and sharing our stories. We're holding events like town halls, rallies, climate strikes, escalated moral protests. We also rely on a large network of Sunrise trainers to teach others about Sunrise's principles and theory of change and why we need a Green New Deal. And in turn, these people are bringing this to their communities. We have members in every corner of America working tirelessly to change the political conversation around climate change. And this is happening. And over the past 2 years, groups like Sunrise have really helped make climate change a national conversation. The second thing that we need to win, again, is political power. So we need a critical mass of public officials and leaders committed to a strong Green New Deal at every level of government. As a movement, we voted overwhelmingly to endorse Bernie Sanders, and we've been an active part of his movement. This race is far from over, and we're still fighting for him because we know he is the person we can trust most to lead us in this crisis. But we are also working to push Joe Biden. I guess he reappeared this morning, which is good, to adopt a real climate platform. So he and the Democratic Party know that if he's the nominee, their base of support is contingent on real climate action. And we're also working to elect progressive down ballot candidates at every level of government. One recent victory we had last week was a Green New Deal champion, Marie Newman. She won over Dan Lipinski in Illinois. And many Sunrise members were critical in helping knock doors in her district. And in New Jersey, many of us, like I'm sure many of you are working to get progressives elected to Congress and other offices. And the third way we win is by changing our political common sense. So we need to build a broad societal consensus that believes in dignity, justice, and equality for all, and strong government action to protect the common good. So today we're still mostly living under the political common sense of the Reagan era, and many of our societal norms and values continue to be influenced by the ideas of the Cold War, like free market capitalism, increased militarism to preserve democracy, the need to protect family values, and the white populism that fed the narrative that America is for the people, but then racially excluded many of those people, while using the economic plight of white working class folks to rationalize a top-down economy that works for no one except the wealthy few. So even though many of these Reagan ideas are still present today, I think we can all start to feel that this political common sense is starting to break apart. People are ready for change. Polls show that the majority of Americans support progressive ideas like Medicare for all and climate change. These are things that are part of our national conversation, and polls show that the majority of Americans are in support of them. There's so many groups around today that fight for things like healthcare, immigrant rights, prison reforms, things that champion justice and dignity for everyone. Bernie Sanders and our revolution wouldn't be where they are today if people were happy with the way things are. So for us at Sunrise, we want to be aligned with this whole movement. And by rooting the need for climate action and the values of dignity and equality for all people, we feel like we can be a part of this larger movement, because we're fighting for people in our communities, not for polar bears in parks.
That's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about our strategy, and then some ways you can get involved in the climate movement locally in New Jersey. So we worked really hard to make climate change matter in the 2018 elections, and now we're working to make sure the whole country feels this urgency. We're fighting to win big in the 2020 general elections up and down the ballot. But we know that the influence of fossil fuel billionaires is so deep in our politics that even when we win Green New Deal champions this year, we're still going to have a fight ahead of us. So we're gearing up to engage in mass non-cooperation, to interrupt business as usual, and bring our society to a grinding halt until we win a Green New Deal. We're working towards building a movement on the same scale as the civil rights movement or the movement to end the war in Vietnam. Strikes and boycotts work. There's a statistic that no democratic movement has ever failed when it's able to mobilize at least 3.5 of the population to protest over a sustained period of time. So this means that we need 11.5 million people in the US to understand the urgency of our crisis and be willing to take to the streets with us until we win real change. So that's where we're headed. Some ways that you can get involved in the climate movement in New Jersey if you're interested. So NJ Earth Day 50 is a coalition of youth and student organizers that many Sunrise Hubs are part of. And we're leading a workshop series on the Green New Deal these dates, next Wednesday, the following Wednesday, and the Wednesday after that, leading up to Earth Day. We're going to be holding several workshops to help each other talk about the Green New Deal and help each other tell our stories about the way we're being impacted by climate change, environmental, social, and economic injustices. And we're going to be sharing our visions for the beautiful and just new world we can build together with a strong Green New Deal. We're going to workshop stories together in small groups, and we're going to plan on how we can collectively and creatively share these on a mass digital week of action on the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So you can sign up at this bit link. And the second thing you can do, especially if you want to learn more about Sunrise, Sunrise is holding a 4-day crash course on the Green New Deal and the climate crisis. It actually starts tomorrow. There's a couple times available, so it's 1 hour each day over the next 4 days. And you can sign up for that at sunrisemovement.org/sunrise school. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for being here. I don't want you to leave just yet. I have David Brook, who is a candidate for township committee in Hillsborough. He's a big time activist for environmental issues. Are you there, David?
I am here.
Hey, hi, David. So David, tell us a little more about yourself and how does this issue impact Hillsborough as a whole?
Well, first, thanks, Samantha, for explaining the better ideas, right? The biggest challenge that that I think we have, you've identified. We are set in momentum, and there's no changing it very quickly. I think the outbreak of the virus has indicated that momentum has now completely changed. And I think one of the things that we need to look at is, obviously, once we get past this point and the healing begins, it's a tremendous opportunity to begin to look at exactly what you've said, which is to begin to refocus the direction that the country's going in, and also on a local level, focusing attention on different kinds of environmental issues, as well as climate change issues. So as Didier mentioned, I got tired of listening to the same people in the town say the same things and not really care or connect with people who live here. And so I guess maybe a few weeks ago, after talking to a number of people, I decided it's time to throw the hat in the ring and try to see about making some changes right here in Hillsborough. part of the reason why is that we can make changes locally. And as you've indicated, if we can make the changes locally, we can have an impact beyond just Hillsborough. The leadership in this town doesn't care about those kinds of issues. And I think it's wrong, but they have their own agenda. And so we're going to try to build a different agenda built upon the kinds of things you're talking about, which is like, we want to do better for the people who live here, but we also want to look at issues relating to energy and climate change, because contrary to what other people may be saying, we can do a lot here. Part of it is that we can each do something, but we can also start to make some changes locally. And I think we also need to sort of look towards Trenton and our legislators to give us some of the authorization that we need to do things that will help the town. Example, there's no program in Hillsborough that relates to the idea of promoting green energy, right? There's a state program. It's, I wouldn't say it's very proactive right now, okay? It used to be, but I will suggest to you that based upon the things that you've said and based upon some of the things I've seen, the state more or less was co-opted by some of the larger utilities. And so the idea of promoting solar energy on an individual basis to homeowners and to others is not very vibrant right now. The only glimmering hope in that is that the federal government is still providing tax credits towards solar installations. That's a great thing, except as you may know, it was 30% last year. Now it's gone to 26%, and it's in the process of going down. It should be going up, right? This is the problem, okay? It should be going up. In fact, there's a number of different ways that the federal government should be looking at this, and the state, because they should be promoting it much more actively. So on a local level, I will have limitations on the kinds of things that I can do to tell the state what to do. But on a local level, one of the things that I'd like to look at is taking what you're talking about, Samantha, and putting it into a green fund for the environment in Hillsborough. And so if we can establish some kind of a fund, and fund's a strange word because people want to know, well, where's the money going to come from? That's something that we'd have to try to figure out and look at. Maybe it's a diversion. Maybe it's looking at how the state laws are written right now with regards to open space and looking at ways to begin to take some monies and put it towards helping people go green. That could be solar, it could be wind, it could be geothermal. It could be any number of different things that we could provide incentives for, right? I mean, because that's really what it comes down to. We want to encourage people to do the right thing. And certainly when something costs less, it creates an incentive. So that's a little bit of what I'm trying to look at right now, and to get some support for changing the way we do business in Hillsborough, as well as the surrounding communities. But right now we haven't been focused on that, and I think we really can make a big difference. And the idea of having town halls, you're right, it makes sense. We've got to educate more people with regards to how to begin to make some of those changes. And there's a lot of creative ways to do it. It's just a question of explaining it to people and bringing them on board. So yes, thank you for bringing up the movement.
Hey Sam, how do you think we could energize the youth in Hillsborough to come out and care about this issue? Because I feel like, back when I was 17, 16, in my teens, I barely care about it. And now that I'm an adult, I care a lot. So how do we reach out to these folks that are the future of our planet? Do you have any ideas of how to focus on that generation of folks who have more to lose?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ways we can do this is by connecting them with other young people that care. I work with a ton of high schoolers, 15, 16, 17, who are really the leaders of this movement. And I think just, like peer pressure, almost like talking to your peers about why this crisis is so urgent and we need to act, and the adults in charge have really just left us in this disaster, and we need to kind of unite together and come together as a movement of young people, and that can be broadly defined. I mean, but yeah, just talking to I think just talking to each other and building those relationships and connections around this crisis is the way to really get people to care.
Right. Compared to all 50 states, how's New Jersey doing? And how do you know the best county in New Jersey that's doing better at green energy and so forth?
I'm not sure the counties that have the best energy, but I know that the towns that have adapted community energy aggregation programs, which is where they generally have to pass an ordinance, or through either just the council will pass it or through a vote, and that will allow them to bulk purchase from clean energy sources. So rather than community members having to put solar panels on their roof or invest in a solar farm in their town, they're basically working with the electricity provider to get the clean energy from a clean source, solar, wind farm. It's not, yeah. So it's making the United States like overall clean energy portfolio larger. I think towns like New Brunswick have passed this, Piscataway. There's a handful of them that passed this program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope that folks learn from the coronavirus and understand that when scientists say we need to be careful or we need to be concerned, we actually become concerned. I really hope that our youth turns up at the polls. They register and actually go and vote, because they could change the future for us and the planet. I'm really excited to have David and yourself here talking to us. I appreciate David for making time for us. He is a smart guy, and David, thank you so much for being here. Are there any last thoughts that you two have? Any questions do you have for each other, or any visions that you hope to see? What do you hope to see in the next 10 years? Sam, starting with you, are you hopeful for the next 10 years, or where do you predict we could go?
Yeah, I'm definitely hopeful. Even with this pandemic, things do feel really dark, and it does kind of feel like the world is ending, but at the same time, like, we're seeing our community members rally together to sew face masks and to deliver groceries to old folks or people that can't get out of their houses. And I really believe that we'll, as a country, we will step up to this challenge. And I think it really just, we need to build the power to make the people in charge who have been bought off leave or care enough to act. But yeah, I am hopeful that in the next 10 years we will have some real steps forward with clean energy, protecting environmental justice communities, taking real steps to stop imperialism.
What about you, David?
What about me? So think about it from that point of view. Everything that Samantha says is correct, but number one, getting people motivated is a critical part of it. And as much as I don't want to use the T word, he has done a tremendous job to make people realize that nobody can sit still and watch what's happening to this country. As bad as Samantha's talking about with regards to where we were, we're 10 times worse than where we started off in 2017. And so we've got to get people motivated, because 4 more years of someone who wants to be a dictator is a major problem with this country leadership. That goes to the issue of new leadership. So we've got to begin to change that leadership and focus on the kinds of things that are based, as you've said, on science and on facts, not on social media make-believe. And I think that's critically important. The other thing, on the basic side, you talked about motivating people and getting people involved here. We got to get everybody registered to vote. There's a whole lot of young people in Hillsborough who may not even be registered at this point. And we've got to find some of them. Some of them are some of the folks who are active are right where you are, you know, right in town, and who are interested in helping out. And I've talked to a number of them. And so once we become a little bit more mobile again, and once we get past this, the isolation component, and hopefully get past the whole pandemic, I mean, we can start to look at that. Let me go backwards. We can't wait. We need to be doing that now via the kinds of communication, the kinds of discussions that you organized, Samantha brought forth, with regards to how are we going to pull people together. We've got an opportunity to get people's attention right now, right in front of their computers, because it's the way we're communicating now. And so we've got to take advantage of that, I think, to really begin to let people know the importance of everything and how critical it is for them to get involved. So, you know, I kind of grew up in a little bit different time when there was a lot of political activism focused on change, right? Back in the old days. But it did motivate a lot of people to get involved. A lot of those folks still are involved. But as you've indicated, we've got to get young people and everybody, not just the young people. We've got to get young people involved, people middle-aged. We've got to get Democrats, we've got to get Republicans, and we got to get independents. I'm not running because I want to get all the Democrats on board. I am, but I think we've got to appeal to everybody to make them understand that time is short, and that if we're going to start making change, we've got to all come together, similar to what Samantha was saying with regards to people trying to help right now. If everybody pulls together and we really begin to work on these issues seriously, we'll make a big change. You know, the other thing I think is interesting, and I've seen it in my neighborhood, solar, right? So one of my neighbors had been talking about solar, okay? And he went and arranged to put it on. After I talked to him, I'm like, you know what? I've been having construction done. And so I could never do it before. And I decided, okay, fine. You know what? Now's the time. Stop talking, start doing. And so I have it now. It's not turned on because there's problems, you know, with inspections and delays, but it will be turned on at some point soon. But then my next door neighbor across the street is now installing it, and someone down the street did it. So people are seeing that it's a good idea, and their neighbors are doing it. And so I think if we can do exactly what both of you were talking about, which is let people know, look, there's solutions. You can take actions on your own. You don't need to wait for them. Then that's also going to make a big difference. So I'm done. Sorry. I don't know if we still have Didier on the phone, or we're in charge now. Okay, he's gone.
I lost him.
We've lost him. Anyway, I really am excited about the idea of trying to make some changes here. And if you're interested, let me know, because you know, we've got to try to build more active groups, as he's talking about, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we have this huge generational divide at the polls that we've been seeing, like across the past few primaries, where we're seeing all of the youth who are going out vote for Bernie Sanders, and then everyone over the age of 50, for the most part, voting for Joe Biden. And if you just climate platform alone, Joe Biden is nowhere near where we need to be. And the youth are the ones that are going to be affected by this, who are voting for Bernie, but we need to turn more of them out. And that's one thing that.
Right. My
hard.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we've got to. And my hope is that regardless of who gets to be the lead, and it does look like it's going to be Biden, that he's got to make some focused concessions towards getting everybody on board. Right?
Yeah.
And which means embracing the ideas of the Green New Deal. And maybe it's not every single one, but I mean, let me present it to you this way. I think everybody will agree that Biden with 50% of what Bernie wants is 1,000% better than the status quo,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Are you back? No sound. We can't hear you.
My phone crashed for no reason.
Oh no.
Go ahead.
We were just talking about mobilizing and bringing the generations together. And Samantha, you know, you're right. There has been a bit of a divide, but I don't see it, right? I don't see it, and I don't want to see it. I want to see all of us working in the same direction, and I really think we can. It doesn't matter. You know the saying, I mean, to me, it's true. It's not how old you are, it's how old you act. And so if people who are young act old, and I've seen it, I teach class. And so when I have college students who are acting like they're 80 years old, you know, I can't do that. This is the way I'm thinking. It's only the way, it's got to be this way. It's like, wait, back up. You know, if you're thinking so conservatively now, what's going to happen when you get to be my age and you're no longer open to new ideas? If we don't adapt, you know, the saying. And so we've got to try to pull everybody together, including the guy with the crashing phone.
Yes. Yes. Very true. You know, what I get scared at is having this emergency in our doorstep, basically, and having folks undermine science. Now, we have this emergency with the climate change issue, which is a bit further away, but in human years, it's very close. And how folks are going and still are undermining science for the sake of profit. So when that issue comes up constantly, it's a problem. This is why people are partying and having weddings, because they don't believe the scientists are doing this. So it's just a pain in the butt to keep telling folks, believe the science. We need to do something about this for your grandkids, for your kids right now. Hell, who knows if if I'm going to be around at that point where I'm going to have grandkids, if we don't have Medicare for all or any type of healthcare, if we survive this. So it's going to be a steep hill to climb. I sure hope there's that unity, like you said, David, about having everybody from all ranges of ages get together and organize and see it as a positive thing, because folks see it as a drag when they think about doing this kind of stuff. But we have to do it now. And everybody has been saying since the 40s and 50s and 60s, we have to do this now. And this time it's not just a symbolic, we have to do it now. We literally have to do it now.
Well, think about it. If you want to put it in a strange context, we are doing it right now. I would imagine that 2020, and again, I haven't seen the CO2 readings, but I would imagine that 2020 is going to be the year that we are going to see a significant drop in CO2 emissions. Okay, and that's going to tell us to a large degree where we need to go and how we need to get there. It's a sad way to see a drop, and I don't encourage that whole approach. It's a sad way, but I mean, it begins to indicate where we need to get to, I think. And the other part of it is how we can bring people together. Still there with us, Didier? Are we crashing again? You know, the other thing that he was talking about that I think is really important is just talking one-on-one with people. You know, you're talking one-on-one to people, and so is he. And if we do that enough, we're going to make a difference just in and of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to kind of think of it as this sort of like web effect where we'll have these conversations one-on-one, but then those people will go out and have those same conversations, and I think that's how we really build change at the local level.
Well, I'm gonna have to get your contact information at some point too, because I want to try to talk to you a little bit more.
Yeah, of course.
You know, especially because I think it's critical to identify people who are sympathetic within each community, and to build that coalition, however we want to define it, to get it done. So yeah. I think he's having problems. I don't know what that means with regards to the whole broadcast of this and whether it
says we're still live.
Oh, does it? Okay, then
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I see that. Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Now, here's the question: can we get anybody involved who's watching on Facebook? I don't know, because I'm learning Zoom and I'm learning WebEx.
Let me see if there's anyone on Facebook.
I didn't see where we are on Facebook. What's the page or the name?
It's the Hillsborough Art Revolution, I think.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I mean, in going back to the thing you said about how we're gonna see a drop in emissions this year, I agree. I don't want to frame this crisis in that way,
Right,
because
It's a sad way to do
this
it.
is not how we want to have a drop in emissions at all. But there was a study that came out a couple of days ago that said that 10,000 people are gonna, there's 10,000 people in China are not gonna die from
Air pollution.
air pollution related
Right.
illnesses and deaths because of the drop in pollution that happened because of the crisis. And that's, again, not how we want to frame this, but
I agree with you.
it just show that, like, when we stop polluting, people won't die,
Right.
which is an important thing to know.
Right. It's a direction that at least tells us that we can succeed, and the challenge is trying to do it in a way that that can be effective.
Mhm.
You know, and I think the other part of that is we've got to look at government. As much as government is the problem, you're back. That's good. As much as government is the problem, ultimately government, I think, is the solution, right? We've seen other crises in this country in different kinds of ways, and we've seen mobilization to try to address it. To some degree, what's happening with the coronavirus now is a good indicator of that, because if we all mobilize, we can make a big difference. I will suggest that there hasn't been exact clear leadership within Washington, and that's a disappointment. And I think that is that's addressable in November of 2018 when we take back the Senate. Okay, I mean, I don't mean to say it that way, but take back the White House and take back the Senate and really start to make that type of larger change where there will be more receptiveness to what Didier's talking about with regards to science and facts and scientists identifying ways to begin to make changes. You know, it's out there, but we haven't created enough incentives for it. You know, one last thing, look at electric cars. Another incentive being created. New Jersey's doing that. That's pretty interesting. I don't know if you've been following it, but I think it's really neat, right? So one, buy an electric car and they're expensive, okay. But keep in mind, obviously no emissions. If you put a solar system in, you can probably charge your own car. But financially, people want to know about the money. You buy an electric car, depending upon the car, Tesla's done with their rebate because they've sold too many. But the other manufacturers, if you buy an electric car, you're going to get a $7,500 tax credit. So that's right off taxes that you're going to pay. And New Jersey now has an incentive for $5,000. Shut this off. That makes it go away. New Jersey now has an incentive. If you buy a car, it's a $5,000 rebate and you don't pay sales tax. Wow. So you're talking about a $12,500, more like even maybe like $13,000 when you add the tax you don't pay, savings when you buy an electric car. And so if we can create each of those little incentives, they're not so little, they're significant, to encourage people to go green, the federal government can make a huge difference in doing that if they choose to. And you're right, they haven't enough, although the 7,500 is a pretty good thing. And hopefully that's going to stick around for a little while. So, you know, there's two ways to look at motivating people, positively and negatively, right? You know, incentives and disincentives. And some of these incentives, if we can continue them, they can make a big, big difference in how people's behavior changes. So
It's true.
I'm excited about that idea.
Yeah.
And trying to, you know, promote more of that and allow people to know that. I don't know how well the federal government has advertised it. I don't know how well the state is. they're saying we want to do this, but how many people are being told about it and encouraged? It's funny, I went to look at an electric car, and one of the places, they didn't know anything about this. I said to them, well, what about the state rebate program? Well, is there one? And so these people are not promoting something that makes a whole lot of sense. And they also would promote a sale if they were better at recognizing how people can save money. Anyway, it's great to talk about these things. And I think, we've got to get more people involved. When we lost you last time, we were just talking about the idea of just one-on-one, right? We need to be talking to people one-on-one, whether it's on the phone, whether it's texting, whether it's situations like this. Because the more people know, the more they're going to sign on board with the changes that make sense. I mean, the other thing we didn't even talk about was jobs, right? Huge amounts of new jobs in all of these areas. And it makes so much more sense than what we've got. And they're good paying jobs. The solar guys that came and did the installation here, you know what? They used to work I asked them, a lot of them worked in construction, in other areas, a lot of them were auto mechanics, and they're all like, this is a better thing to do. Number one, they feel better about doing it. Two, they're making more money because it pays better. And they're accomplishing a whole lot more too, when you think about it, because they're helping to save the planet. Well, maybe not save the planet, but they're helping to save the climate. Maybe they're helping to try to, reverse the damage that we've done. Best way to put it.
Yeah, I feel with the solar energy, the recent tariffs on steel and so forth hurt the profit level for companies in that sense. So there's so many obstacles that we have to pass by now. But I mean, once we have the ability to set up events and meet person to person and let folks know we're an inclusive group, come and learn, come talk to us. We're your neighbors. We're brothers and sisters and moms and dads who are equally concerned about this issue. And it is the easiest subject I feel that we could reach a middle ground, because we're all aware with our own eyes that the storms keep coming, the tornadoes, hurricanes keep coming, earthquakes keep coming because of fracking and different stuff, different things that we do with our planet that destroys it. So I want everybody who is watching to please follow us in Our Revolution Hillsborough. We will be creating these type of events until we're able to meet up with folks in person, and we'll have events in Hillsborough. Thank you so much for Samantha DeFalco for giving us her time and educating us about the importance of climate change. Thank you, David Brooke, for spending your time talking to us about how this impacts in Hillsborough and how we have to work together on this issue, because there's no way around it. There's no way to defeat the special interests are destroying our planet for their short-term profit. No way we're gonna let that happen, especially in Hillsborough. We gotta be the first major town in our county, then our state, to move forward radically with great ideas. So thank you, everybody. Stay safe, wash your hands, use soap. Do not touch your face unless you wash your hands really well. And be safe out there. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.